In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, our special guest is Mr. Adrian Havelock. Adrian N. Havelock is a powerhouse of persuasion, purpose, and performance. As one of the most sought-after sales trainers in the Caribbean, Adrian has transformed how corporate giants communicate with their customers, replacing outdated sales tactics with authentic, human-centered engagement. A featured guest on America in Black and White, Adrian brought his signature energy and insight to the conversation, sharing how culturally aligned communications can unlock untapped potential in both business and life. His approach is bold, unorthodox, and deeply effective, empowering professionals to sell with integrity, speak with impact, and lead with purpose. Through his company and platform, Unlock Your Potential, Adrian offers corporate sales training, which is custom designed workshops that teach influence-driven communication strategies. His public speaking coaching techniques are techniques to build powerful talks and present with confidence. He also has books and online courses, including how to succeed in sales and in life, a guide to aligning with the right people and growing your business through authentic connection. Adrian's client list spans industries and continents, but his heart remains rooted in community uplift. His sessions are known for being intense, entertaining, and transformational, leaving participants not just informed, but inspired. Whether he's leading a keynote, training a team, or mentoring one-on-one, Adrian Havelock is redefining what it means to sell, speak, and succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adrian Havelock. Hello, sir.
Hello, and what an introduction there. Couldn't have written it better myself if I would have tried.
How are you?
I'm very, very good.
Well, welcome back to the show again, and I'm definitely glad that you're back because we're in some times right now where what you do in your industry is very important to daily lives. So, is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
I recently started another company in Trinidad, an air conditioning HVAC company, and I have a team working there. So new territory, new business, but definitely something that works. So you can add businessman to my portfolio and see where that goes.
All righty. See, that's what's up. And so I'm sure that on this special Friday night, this masterclass that you're about to give, I'm sure it's going to be very beneficial for a lot of us.
I hope so as well.
So let's start with your origins and identity. Can you tell us about your upbringing and how it shaped your approach to business and communication?
Oh, that's a story I could definitely start with. Ever since I was a small kid, in primary school, teachers would ask, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I always said, I want to manage a company. I want to manage a business, because manager was the only thing that I knew in my mind at that time because I was so small. But I always thought that was nice to do. And I guess seeing my dad when I was small have his own electrical business and doing really well also influenced me, because I'm like, every time he went to work at random times, because he had his own company, so it wasn't like a 9 to 5 strictly. But every time he worked, he get paid. He worked, he get paid. So that instilled in me, like, once I put in the effort to do something, I would be rewarded with it. And knowing that I would have gone to work with him when I was a kid and see what he did, help them out, move cables, put on glands and hook it up on panels and stuff. And he would just tell me what to do. I didn't know anything. And then he would inspect what we do after, tighten up stuff. I was practically basically working with him in his business from small. So going to school and doing that part time with him ever so often, it started off as, okay, it's not an exposure to the working world in the corporate world sense of a 9 to 5, but more in the working world of someone who is self employed, someone who has a business of their own. And that for me was a major influence into why, when I got out into the working world after school, I didn't make the grades for college. I didn't have that mindset to do so well enough to at least be able to get into college. But I did have the mindset that after I finished high school, I wanted to work, because I knew if I work, I'd make money. And if I make money, I can get to buy the things that I want to buy, right? Without having to ask my parents for anything. And at the age of 19, I did 1 or 2 internships, 18 into 19. But by 19, I was just sending out resumes to different companies, and I was basically seeing which one would hit, not knowing back then that was kind of like prospecting and sales for clients, right? So I was prospecting a job perhaps, and one of the companies that called me was actually a brand that I always loved, because I like cars, but I always had a liking for BMW, and I was like sending it out, and that was one of the companies I was like, yeah, if I get through with this, I'll be happy. And
Right.
I get a call for an interview, and I was like, yeah, I'll come to the interview. But I had to go into the city to do the interview, and I don't live close to the city, so I had to, take taxis and buses to get to the city. So I had to leave home very early. And that first interview that I did with them, 19 years old, fresh out of school, the requirements on the job description, because I even clipped it out of the newspaper and I walked with it to the interview, said that you needed to have a car and be over 25 years to do the job, neither of which I had. but, but in the interview, the managing director asked me a couple of questions, because he happened to be sitting in the interview as well. He said, how would you approach this client if you were to go to their office and stuff? And I said, I'll walk in, I'll shake their hand, wait for them to invite me to sit. And after all of that, one of the things I remember doing was pointing out to them, this is the ad that you all had in the papers. And you said training would be provided in your ad. So I pointed out to them to say, the only way I can do good in this job is if you all give me the training that I need to do good in the job. And you all said it in the ad. And they didn't respond to that, but I saw them shake their heads, and I was like, okay, interview is over. And I left and I went home. And the following week, I got a call saying, from the manager who was also in the interview for the South branch. He called and offered me the job. They say they liked how I responded, and they saw potential, and they know that I don't have a car or I meet the age requirements, but they want to give me a chance. And I was like, okay. So he asked when you could start, and I was like, tomorrow. He was like, how about we return next week? So on the 10th of July 2006 was my first day I walked into the dealership as a salesman, fresh out of school. And that was where the career started. Within the first 2 years, taking taxis to go to work to sell cars, luxury cars to boot. And I didn't have a car of my own. You had to have a special kind of talent for that, right? You don't even
Right.
own a car, but you're selling cars.
Exactly.
Within the first 2 years, I was in the top 3 in sales. And, already hitting that point, just being the youngest person in the industry at the time, 20, 21 years of age, and then being in the top 3 in the company, that gave me a lot of pride, gave me a lot of joy, and I really enjoyed doing the job. And I worked in sales at BMW for 6 years. So from 2006 to 2012. Exactly the 24th of February 2012 was when I actually left because I wanted to pursue a career in training and development. Because at one point in time, they had international trainers that came in and they trained us. And I was like, I want to do what they're doing. Because those were guys from BMW coming in to train us. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So I left sales, but at that exact time, the opportunity wasn't there to do training with them. So I said, what can I do? I don't want to go back into the working world, but I do want to do something with myself. Sat down home, and then I'm like, I could train people to sell. At least if I want to get into training, I might as well start training, despite not having the opportunity to work at BMW as yet for training. So I sat down, built out a course within the space of 2 months. So I was home for like 2 3 months. And then I started calling up my own clients who have companies, who have staff. And I was like, hey, Charles, you mind if I come and do a training session with your team and train them how to sell in the same way that I convinced you to buy your BMW? And I think that was a selling point because they really liked me as a salesman. And it was like, Adrian, yeah, I would love to have my sales team selling the way you were able to sell the car to me, right? And it picked up from there. I was just getting clients after clients, and it was people that I already know because they were already clients that I sold to in the past when I was in sales. So it was a nice, easy platform to get off on. And from there, the career started picking up again. So 2013, 14, 15, I was starting to do interviews like this online, meeting people. 2016, the opportunity did come around to start back training with BMW. And so I started with them while I'm doing my own sales training with companies. And by 2018, I wrote 2 books, one of which was co-authored with Brian Tracy and actually hit a best-selling rank on Amazon. And yeah, more interviews, more podcasts, and more work that I was doing. And it's just snowballed from there. Everything just grew, and here we are today. I'm on the Great Charles King America in Black and White podcast. So that's where we are today. We're at the top.
Yes, sir. That's what's up. And see, that's I got to tell you. Well, let me just ask you this: when you first walked in, as young as you were, what was the reception to the other salespeople?
You know what? I don't think they had any reactions. They were on their own beat. They were focused on doing their own sales and stuff like that. So I don't think they really had any concern about if I'm a threat or if I'm not gonna last. I think they were just doing their thing, and I came in and I started doing my thing. But to be honest, we ended up all building a friendship, a really, really close friendship, where we were actually helping each other and helping each other with our customers. So like one day my colleague wouldn't be here, but his customer has to take a delivery of a car. I would help him do it. I'll do the delivery for him, do all the documents, send the customer off smiling, bye bye. And you know what? He'd do the same thing for me. And that helped. That little game that we were playing was a really, really close bond that we ended up forming, all of us. And it worked well in our favors because we were actually at the top 3 in the company. So the mere fact that we had like a collaborative friendship where we all helped each other, it all pulled us to the top. And that was I would say magical.
Yeah, that's the kind of bond you want, especially in that kind of environment, because it makes it that much easier and that much better for everyone else. So it makes it totally, totally smooth.
Yeah, it does. It does. There's no cutthroat mentality or atmosphere like that. It was completely like a family bond, I would say. You need help, I'm gonna help you. I want help, I know you're gonna help me. And that is really what took us there. So, having built that level of sales expertise, and then that type of clientele you build relationships with, it was an easy transition when I started my business as trainer to just easily work with these clients because I already had the relationships, I already had the bonds and the trust with them, most importantly.
So what was your first experience with sales? And did you know then that it would become your calling?
Well, my first experience in sales really was when I walked into the dealership in 2006, because prior to that, it was just I went to school. Okay, so I had no working. This was I'm fresh off the boat, you know. So I,
Wow.
no, no, I walked in there, but I knew it was a brand that I liked. So you know, because I think having the passion for a brand that I liked, but I didn't know too much about it. I just knew that I liked the brand. That really um, set the pace from there. So my first experience was trying to understand how to get clients, how to get people to buy, and trying to figure it out. And then when I sat down and I look at what my colleagues were doing, I tried to copy what they were doing when I saw it work.
Mhm.
And when I got the first customer, I'll give you the story. The first two customers, in fact, little backstory. I was on probation for 3 months, right?
Okay.
So on probation, you get like a stipend, right? And if you sell something, they would give you a very, very fixed small commission that goes with it. So it wasn't like the regular commission. It was almost equivalent to the stipend if you sell anything within your probationary period. So for that probationary period, I was figuring out stuff. I was prospecting. I was meeting a lot of customers as I went along. And two of those customers said, you know what, Adrian, we're going to buy some vehicles from you. But the thing is, they weren't small cars, it was X5s. So
Oh,
those
oh
X5s
wow.
were like big vehicles. But here's the thing, the timing in which they wanted the cars was when I came out of probationary period. So I got two deposits, I closed two deals, but I didn't deliver the vehicles within the probationary period. So when I came off probation, the managing director said, well, Adrian, we see that you're working. We see that you're getting results. We've heard good things about you from customers. We're going to put you on the contract and you're going to sell fully. As soon as I signed that contract, boy, I closed those deals because the customers were ready. And I filled out the forms for full commission. So
Oh,
all my colleagues came back and they laughed. Say, Adrian, you were waiting to come off that probationary period because you wanted that big check, didn't you? You want that big check. And you know what? It worked out. So when I closed those deals, it was two X5s and three X5s. And then after that, it was just X5 and 5 Series, all the big BMWs I was selling to the big businessmen. I hardly sold the 1 Series and the 3 Series and the minis. They started to call me the 5 Series and X5 specialist. Well,
mhm.
they were given the biggest commissions for those units. So I became specialized in it, but I figured out how to sell it and how to do really well. So that first experience when that customer gave me the deposit for the X5, I felt proud because he wasn't too much older than me as well. That first customer, I was like 20, he was like 24 years old, but he had his own business and doing really well. And that motivational boost is what set the tone for me to be confident and approach any other customer after that.
Wow. So, how has your Caribbean heritage influenced your style, your voice, and your mission?
Well, Caribbean people, we are very loving people. We are very communicative people. We're very touchy and feely in the sense of if I want to buy something, I want to see it, I want to hold it, I want to smell it, I want to taste it. And we're very interactive that way. But we're very loving people in the way that we speak because you need to have a conversation and build a bond with somebody from the Caribbean in order for them to do business with you. It's not straight black and white transactional where this product is bad, this one is good, you need to buy this one. It's not like that at all. We need to have a conversation. We need to have familiarity. We need to have drinks. Okay. And when we sit down and we drink and we have a good time,
Mhm.
that's how we do business. We do business through relationships, through socializing, through alcohol. We that's how we do business, but it works. And the Caribbean heritage is about bonding because you could go to any Caribbean island and it's always a good time with whoever you're having there. But that
Mhm.
is how we do business. It's not suit and tie necessarily. We may dress in a suit and tie, but
Mhm.
this communication definitely not suit and tie. It's about being comfortable with who you're talking to.
Oh, wow. What does unlock your potential mean to you personally?
Digging deep and seeing what I am capable of doing. I'm a risk taker by nature, But I only figured out that I was a risk taker by nature when I started taking chances. And when I took some chances that worked, it gave me confidence to take more chances. And I'm not going to say everything worked. There were things that didn't work. There were instances I lost money or just I made bad investments and I had no money in the bank. And there are instances where it paid off greatly. But unlocking your potential really stems from tapping into a part of you where you're not sure, but you're going to go for it anyways, because there's a 50% chance, not a 10%, not a 5%. There's a 50% chance you do well.
Mm-hmm. But let me just say, when I hear unlock your potential, what it says to me is, it's like basically like an untapped market.
Yeah,
So it's like, what's in here, in order to perform out here, we got to do something to jog that a little bit. So once
exactly.
it's jogged, then it's open. And
It,
when it's open and you see what that's like, then the world is yours.
yeah, you gotta shake up that soda bottle so that when you open the cover, it explodes and everything comes out, but it comes out brilliantly. It's like art, right?
Right.
And if you
Right.
don't shake up that soda bottle, everything is gonna stay flat. And if you don't open it for a long time, it's gonna taste flat. It's not gonna have any more fizz in it. So
I definitely understand that.
yeah, so you don't want it to taste flat. You want to get that fizz. You want to get that explosion of joy, that euphoric feeling of knowing I tried something and it worked.
So, who were your early mentors or role models in business or life?
Hmm. May I ask, would you want me to answer that in a local context or in an international context?
However, that's up to you.
That's a good question. Okay. Um, I would say when I started doing sales, that motivation to work with the brand came from the brand itself with BMW at that time. But what I started doing in the early days of now working with the companies, that I started reading books.
Mhm.
And I always remember I want to have a business. That was always the mindset at the back of my mind. I want to have a business. Working in sales and getting commission only was still thinking like a business, because if the business don't make money, I don't make money. So early on in the days of selling, I thought, what if I buy a book and just read it and see where that goes? And I bought a whole host of books one by one, because what I would do is that if a book recommended another book, that's when I'd go get the other book based on the recommendation from within the book. So the first book that I picked up was The Power of Positive The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Oh,
Yeah. And that book, in some form or fashion, when I read it, teach me a little bit about, I would say, how to manifest and how to pray. And I don't know what inclined or pushed me to choose that book, but maybe the line positive thinking was something that jumped out at me. And I read that book and I got hooked on it. So I took my time and I read. Now I don't read a book in one weekend. I'm one of those guys. I'll read one chapter a day or one section of a chapter a day and then continue the following day, because I want to absorb and understand what I'm reading before I move forward. And I took like a month to read the book entirely because I was soaking it all in. And I said, let me try the principles. And the principles in the book was something like, the movie The Secret.
yes.
Yeah, it was something it was teaching me something like how to do that, because I started to like try and experiment with certain things that were manifesting in a way, and I was seeing results. Like I was like, "This is working," and so I'm like, I will try again. Let me see. I want to see if I can get another sale with something here. Let me see if I could get it, and I put a timestamp to it, and I manifest, and it worked. It happened again. So on repeat, I was like, okay, I need to buy another book. And that trend just went on and on and on. So Norman Vincent Peale was one of the first mentors, I would say, through his book that started me on that role. And I started to look things up online. So then I started to listen to people like Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins, now his videos jumped out at me because it was animated, the way he spoke and stuff like that. And I started to follow these guys. Um, Another book that jumped out that I got, you can see the trend here, right? The mentors came from books. In most
Yes.
instances, it came from books. Now, I was never a big reader, but reading something that caught my attention made me want to read more. And another book that I use is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And that's one book that I read every year, once a year. I recommend it to any and everybody. If you could get your hands on The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino, read it. It's an easy book, very short chapters, and it's a lovely story. That book helped me get even better at sales because it taught me how to be resilient and how to push forward and how to be persistent in whatever it is I want to pursue. And it kept snowballing from there. And then one day I came across this guy on YouTube, Andy Harrington. Andy Harrington is one of the greatest, I would say, speakers out there, speaking trainers out there, public speaking experts in the UK. And I started looking at his courses and stuff, and I signed up for his online thing. And you're paying a monthly subscription. And I was getting like, hey, this is good public speaking tips. This is good sales tips. This would help me with my business. And I ended up going to England, meeting with him in person. And I told him, hey, I signed up for your course, but I really came here. I wanted to meet you and just say hi. Thank you for the techniques that you're giving me. And he said, Adrian, when are you leaving to go back to Trinidad? I was like, I got to leave on Wednesday. He was like, change your ticket. This weekend I'm having a boot camp. You're going to come to it for free. Just change your ticket. Say no more. I changed my ticket and extended my stay by a further week. And I went to that boot camp because who wouldn't like a free boot camp? You know?
Right.
So he offered it to me and he said, Adrian, only because I made the effort and stuff like that, he saw the potential and he said, I'm going to tell you, come to my boot camp for free. I'm going to sign you up and everything. You just show up. So said, so done. That was one of the best boot camps I ever did in 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, over a weekend. And I think people paid about 2,500, about £500 or something like that to attend that boot camp. And I was like, I got through with it. Came back to Trinidad and stuff, and I mean, it helped me with business. It helped me do everything in a much streamlined way. So the couple mentors that I would say were from books were Norman Vincent Peale, Og Mandino, Tony Robbins, Andy Harrington. These were some of the guys who I would have looked up to. These days, my present mentor, I would say, who's really helping me along with things, I would say, is Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer. No, I mean, he talks about things from a spiritual sense, but it does help with manifesting as well, because I came across his book, Manifest Your Destiny, and I thought it was one of the best books I ever came across. In fact, I highlighted so many lines in that book. It was a coloring book by the time I was done with it. So it was really, really good. And that, I would say, looking up to these people and actually taking their advice, and again, tapping into that untapped potential and trying things. When you see the results, it really motivates you to take chances and do things and want to do more.
Wow. Let's transition over to sales strategy and influence. And tell us, what's the biggest myth people believe about sales?
It's you gotta harass people.
I remember that.
Like, I don't want to get into sales. I don't want to be harassing people. Sales is not for me. Have you ever done sales? No, but I don't think I would like to do sales. Well, that's because it's a perception. Maybe in the past, the salespeople used to harass people. You had a car salesman that would be pushy, but that's a thing in the past. That's a stigma that still stick with today's world of selling because it's completely changed. So yeah, that's a myth. It's not something where you're harassing people, and if it is, then you're not gonna get any sales because nobody's gonna buy if they feel harassed. So yeah.
So, how do you teach people to sell without being salesy?
Oh, that's simple. You have to genuinely be interested in trying to help the other person and trying to understand their situation. And the only way you can do that is if you ask them questions. What's going on? What's happening? How is this happening? Why do you think it's happening? What makes you feel this way? Make it about them. So always fill your sentences and questions with you, your, right? And try to understand their situations. And the thing is, just by them explaining themselves and expressing themselves and venting in some cases to you, they build a trust and a bond with you that you can't even describe. And when you do that, you genuinely seek their interests, you could sell them anything without having to sound salesy.
You know, I think that salesy thing, I'm sorry, but I keep laughing about that, is because, I mean, when you just think about sales, I mean, that is the only thing I can remember. I know I'm older than you, but let me tell you, that is one thing I take that just gets in my craw. And I remember now every time I go to a car dealership, if I'm going to get a new car, I go and just have them just write it up for me because I've already got a check that's going to come and pay for
Exactly.
it, right? And so even in that whole process, are you sure we can't beat that price? No, you can't beat 1%. Unless you're giving it to me for free.
Yeah.
But and then it's like, well, we can just try this and maybe we can run this. No, please don't do that. But they just, I mean, it's like it's one of those things with some places that this is what they do, and this is like at some luxury dealerships. But see, it's too bad that I didn't have the opportunity to actually purchase a car from you because the way you make sales sounds, I mean, sales is just lovely.
So here's how I used to do it. I could remember almost every single customer that I sold to, the interaction I had with them the first time. And when I did the delivery, I remember each one of them number plate to this day. I know it by heart. Right? So I know their number plates by heart. That's how involved I was in the sales process. But here's an example. There were customers who would come and they would sit down and they would talk with me. Now, 50% of the time, I would sell a car without even doing a test drive, right? Because it's how you speak to them. They just build that trust with you, and then they write the check. The first time they'll ever drive the vehicle without doing a test drive is when they come for delivery. But I remember there was an interaction, well, quite a few. I'll just give you one of them. The customer was looking at the X5, Toyota Prado, Audi Q7, Volkswagen Touareg, and not the Range Rover. I don't think he was looking at the Range Rovers back then, but the Mercedes-Benz M-Class vehicles. And he checked quite a few of them before he came to me, and I spoke with him and everything, and I took him through the vehicle and stuff like that. And then he said, Adrian, I'm looking at these other things. And I'm like, I'm glad that you're looking at those other vehicles. And if you could, see if you can drive those other vehicles. Go and drive the Mercedes, go and drive the Audi, go and drive all of them, and choose the one that suits you. That the one that you feel most comfortable with, you choose that one because that's the one that's going to make you happy. And I just left the meeting at that, right? I told him, I didn't try to sell him the X5. I just said, go and drive, and whichever one you like, you choose it. He came back and he bought the BMW X5 for me. Why? Because I was the only salesman that did not try to sell it to him. I was honest, I was real, and I said, you choose something that made you happy. And as a result, it was actually me that made him happy because he didn't feel like I was pressuring him to buy anything from me.
Wow. So what's your signature technique for building trust with your clients?
My signature technique, I think it's putting your heart into it. Because if you're going to have a meeting with somebody, don't focus on what you have to sell. Don't focus, okay, I'm selling this cell phone or I'm selling this laptop, and this is the best one, this one has the fastest processor, this one has the cleanest camera, or whatever it may be. Don't focus on your product or service at all. Remove that completely from your mind. Put your heart into the customer and genuinely feel for that customer and understand that customer's situation. And based on what they tell you and how you understand what they're going through, you would be able to give them a solution that would help them, and not necessarily sell them something because you have to sell them something. So that is what I think is the key thing there.
How do you help people overcome fear or rejection in sales?
Process of elimination. Think of it as a blessing in disguise. If you were to worry about everybody that tells you no, it's going to break your confidence. But if you look at everybody that says no as one step closer to getting to a yes, then by process of elimination, this is not a customer for me right now, but could be for later down the road. Let me just put them on the back burner and let me move on to the next one and see. But once you do that and you understand that it's a mindset thing, and it's not that the customer is rejecting you, but it's just directing you to go to somewhere where you would find that customer, a redirection, let's say, that is how you can overcome the fear of rejection, because rejection is more of a perception in someone's mind rather than a redirection to where you're supposed to be going.
So what's the difference between persuasion and manipulation, and how do you stay ethical?
The difference between persuasion and manipulation, I would say, has a negative connotation to that word. So if you're trying to manipulate, you're trying to change, you're trying to influence something, it would be with not the right intentions. Okay, so the word itself, manipulative or manipulation, has that negative energy around it. Whereas persuasion, it's more like, okay, you have options. Maybe this option is better. Maybe this option could work for you. It's to just guide and direct. Okay, so when you have to look at both options, the only time I would use a manipulation is if you're using it with bad intentions or a negative experience, like, or you're lying to someone, then that's manipulative, or you're gaslighting someone, that's manipulative. But
some people are good at that.
They're very good at it. They're professional gaslighters, I would say. But when you could persuade someone, it's not necessarily about doing it with a negative energy, but it's more with a guiding force, I would say, and guide them to something that would suit them. I hope I was able to answer that question.
Yes, sir, you did. Let's transition over to your public speaking and coaching. Can you tell us what makes a speaker unforgettable?
Stories. Okay. A speaker that would come up and share a story. Here's what. If I were to bring facts and data to you, chances are you're not going to remember everything on that spreadsheet that I would share on that PowerPoint slide. But if I come and I share a story about my dog with you, you're going to remember that story. You're going to remember that story, and you're going to remember the feeling that story gave you. And if someone has to speak and do a really, really good job to even bring information from data across an audience, you bring it across in the way you tell a story, and they are going to feel it, they're going to remember it. And then there are ways to do it in such a way where they do feel it, where you could evoke emotion, because it's not going to be a dry story. It's going to have emotions in it. It's going to be good, it's going to be sad, it's going to be angry, it's going to be happy, right? You're going to try to tap into different emotions with that story and tap into the audience experiences, life experiences, to be able to connect the dots of your story and their lives. So if you're good at telling stories, you can be a memorable speaker.
How do you coach someone who's terrified of public speaking?
You show them that in social psychology, there's something called the spotlight effect. And the social psychologists say a spotlight effect is when someone is so focused on themselves, they don't realize that everybody else not focusing on them. So when you go up in front of a stage and you freeze in fear because of the spotlight effect. You put yourself in the spotlight when nobody else is actually taking you on, right? They're not studying you, but you are studying you more than they are studying you. And you're worried about
Mm.
making a mistake. You're worried about, oh, what if I fumble? What if I say the wrong words? What if I'm shaky? What if I'm sweaty? When the audience probably not thinking all of that. They're just thinking about what you have to say. So once I'm able to show them that, hey, try this, say this, and tell me if the audience reacts the way you expect them to react or if they're not reacting that way. And in front of a group, we do it. And then when they do it and they try it, I turn to the group and I say, did you all feel it or did you all not worry about what he was thinking? And they always say, I'm not worried about what he's thinking. And then that lowers their guard and makes them feel more comfortable. And I say, if you do this more and you try it, it's going to work. And then when we spend time together doing that, and then they're building out a speech, they realize, okay, I could actually say this thing, I can speak from my heart, and I speak with confidence, and I'm actually not worried. I'm not putting the spotlight effect on myself. And they overcome the fear with that. So trying to understand first what the spotlight effect is helps a lot with removing the fear.
What's your advice for delivering a message that moves people emotionally?
I would say a message that would move people emotionally comes after a story. So you have to give a story that evokes emotion in the first place. And if you could bring out the emotion with people, right? Make them feel happy, make them feel sad, make them feel angry, because your story is going to have different points there, right? And they connect with that. By the time you end your presentation or you end the story or both, you need to give them some kind of motivational quote, right? So you could quote any great speakers out there, any great authors out there. You could come up with your own quote, but that quote leaves them. It ends the presentation, it ends the talk with something that's like a takeaway, right? I remember finishing a talk once and I ended it with a quote by Thomas Troward. And that quote said, the law of flotation, um, what was it? The law of I forgot the quote. Just a minute, I'll get it. The law of flotation is not was not discovered by the sinking of things, right?
Okay. Okay, that's the
Yeah,
opposite.
because the law of flotation was not discovered by the sinking of things. It means that if you focus on what's sinking, it's going to sink. But if you
Mhm.
focus on what needs to float, you're going to find something that's floating. You're going to figure it out, right?
Mm.
And it's going to keep your head above the
Yes.
water. So, in other words, don't be thinking down about anything. Don't be thinking in negative. Don't be thinking about the worst case that could possibly happen. Because then, if you always think about what could go wrong, you'll never think about what could go right.
Mm. So would that be another one of those versions of just a positive reinforcement and what's in your mind and you
It is.
projecting that positive image that this is how it's going to
It
come
is.
out?
It is because at the end of the day, you have anytime you're doing a talk, nobody does a talk to make people feel bad and end it there. You always do a talk to uplift someone. Once you're in front of the stage, it's some form of upliftment. So at the end of the day, even if
Mhm.
you tell a sad story, you tell a story that's going to get people angry, you want to end that on a high because you want to give people the confidence and the belief in knowing that it was worth their time to listen to you.
Mhm. How do you prepare for a keynote or major presentation?
Well, first of all, you need to know what you're going to talk about and who your audience is. Because if I'm going to talk to kids between the age of 5 years old and 10 years old, it's not going to be the same talk I'm going to give to adults 21 to 45 years old. It's not going to hit
Mhm.
them the same way. I need to know who the audience is to be able to know how to make this subject relative to what they can understand. I could explain this point in a way in which they can understand. Because if I were to be talking about sciences and the audience is 21 to 45 years old, I could use a couple technical jargons. They would get it. They would have learned it in school. But if I'm doing it, same thing with a 5-year-old to 10-year-old, I'll need to break that language down into basic language, not any technical term. I need to remove it completely. So you have to always dumb it down to a way in which people would understand, but you need to know who your audience is. So preparing your talk involves with knowing your audience, knowing what your subject is, and then understanding how you can flow and practice your talk.
Do you always rehearse before your speech or your presentation before you do them?
Sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you, sometimes, because I've been doing it for so long now. Sometimes when you just know what you're talking about, you end up just presenting naturally, but that only comes after you've been doing it for a while, because you've done it with multiple different audiences. So in your head, you already have a framework of how to execute the talk in your head. So when you've done it so many times, so repeatedly, you could execute it with any audience. And you need to practice, yes, but once you've practiced it enough, you could just adapt to that audience. Because there were instances where unexpectedly you get called upon to speak, and when you have to find the words in that moment, instead of freezing up and letting the spotlight effect hit you, you need to be ready. And I would say most times experience helps the words to flow once you have a structure to work with. That only happens over time.
What's the most powerful speech you've ever given and why?
I did a graduation talk for my alma mater. And
Oh wow, I'm sure that
so
was
so I
interesting.
was a past student of the high school, and teachers who were there when I was a student called me to say, Adrian, we want you to talk for the school graduation, and we're gonna have it in this big auditorium that we have in Trinidad here. And of course, it would probably be at least 200 to 300 students. And I went up on stage. Now that one literally had a spotlight on me, because that was a stage where you do a lot of performances and theater and speaking and concerts and stuff. I did that talk and I had them shouting on command when I did the talk, raising their hands on command when I did the talk. And at the end of the talk, I had everybody up on stage to do like an to applaud themselves. And I think that was one of the most impactful ones that I've done. But understanding how to control an audience and getting them to respond and react in the way in which I do it on command requires certain techniques that you could only have to learn. You can't really do that off the fly. It's knowing the timing, knowing how to get them to shout all at once in harmony, that kind of thing. Yeah. But it was impactful.
Let's transition over to your books, courses, and content. Tell us about your book, How to Succeed in Sales and in Life. What inspired it?
Well, from all the books that I was reading and all the unofficial mentorship I was getting through those books and videos and stuff, I realized, hey, what, I'm kind of in the same industry as these guys. They're speaking, they're training, they're coaching. I'm practically doing the same thing. And they all have a book. So I was like, if they all have a book and they're speaking and coaching and doing well, then I need to have a book too. So, if you're going to copy somebody, copy the greatest people out there, because if you copy them, you're going to get the same results as they do. And in 2016, I started laying out the foundations for the book, because I thought, okay, I'm training people on sales, but I'm always training them in groups. What if I could reach more people without having to be there? The book would be the best approach. So I basically took my sales training and started putting it in a book format. And I had no idea how to start writing it, but I said, you know what, I'll start. And I realized that when you start something, everything that you need starts to come to you. You start to attract it. You start to manifest it. So I started writing the book, and a little post on Facebook here or there saying, hey, I'm writing this book. I'll start this chapter 1. And I post a picture about it and stuff. And eventually, somebody who's an editor reached out to me and she said, "Well, I could edit books if you want somebody to edit it." Woo, that was easy. I didn't even have to ask. I found an editor. And then another colleague of mine, he had a publishing company in the UK and he published his own book. He said, "Adrian, I could publish the book for you, but I'll recommend doing it as a self-published book. I'll just facilitate it because when you self-publish, you own everything." I was like,
Exactly.
well, okay, let's do that. And it started to all come together. And I figured the hardest thing that I have to do here is finishing writing the book because clearly everything else, somebody else is doing it for me. The editing, the publishing, the printing. I don't have to do any of those. I just have to write it. So the hardest thing is writing it. And I said, I'm going to finish this when I finish it because I'm not going to put a timestamp to it because not every day you're going to feel motivated to sit down and focus. So whenever I catch the feeling, I would sit and write and then I'd stop. 2 days may pass and then I'd catch the feeling again. I was like, okay, I'll sit and write. And after a year and 2 months, I did the last full stop after a year and 2 months. And then it took some months again to get the editing corrected, fix this, fix that, the design covers, send it to my guy, let him do a print run, send a sample to me, what it would look like and stuff. So about 2 years, so by 2018, I launched that book.
Wow. Wait, so did you have a book launch? Was it in person or was it online? Or did you even do
I
that
didn't
at
do
all?
that at all. I everybody that I knew who were following the process were basically following me as I went along, posting, "Hey, look this book, it's almost done," flipping pages, that kind of thing. So when I did release the book, I just started sharing the link for Amazon. I started sharing the link for my website and stuff, and I just it took off from there because everybody I knew and everybody who knew me from training, from growing up, from kids, from family, whoever, everybody just started buying the book. And I think on its own, organically, it did really well, right? From a local perspective. But I also didn't push the sales because in the back of my mind, I always said, I'm not writing this book to sell 1 million copies. I'm writing this book to get my foot in the doors of the corporate world that I want to get my feet into without having to prove myself. So the book itself brought credibility. And that credibility opened more doors for me in the way that I wanted, working with the corporate world. And it paid off.
Oh wow. See, look at you. There is a lot of folk, I guess, especially from that organic perspective. Let me just tell you, there's a lot that goes into that work, and I'm sure you know that. But when you don't actually put in that work, then you don't get the results. But if you've got a great following and people understand you and know you, then they're going to be sharing that information. So it's going to grow regardless of the case.
It is. It's going to grow. And the thing is, you have to do the groundwork. Writing the book itself was the hardest part of the whole thing. Getting it published, getting it edited, all of that. Somebody else did it for me. I didn't have to do all of that myself. I just had to pay them to do it, yes, but I didn't have to do that heavy lifting. The heaviest one was really just writing the book. And I write how I speak, which means it's not proper English. So I got a lot of cuss from the editor. She was like, "What is this? What are you supposed to?" And I'm like, "Okay, I mean this." She said, "Well, fix it." And that's how I got it better.
But can I ask you this? Because when I published my first book, I mean, it's not that I write like that, but this is what I find so interesting is that when a lot of people that actually write the way they talk, when it's in that voice, and if you know that person, like let's just say if I had read that and I knew you, then it's like, okay, this is a good read. Okay. But I know for outside that, then it's a little bit different. How did that change, or did that change your writing style after that book?
Well, it didn't. It didn't.
Okay.
Like I would write sorry, I would speak, but in the Caribbean here, we have a mixture of the English language from US English to British English and stuff like that. And when you're using that mix, the spelling is off because there's a British way to spell a word, there's a US way to spell a word, like organization. In some cases, it has a Z. In some cases, it has a S. Which is which, right? So if I'm writing, I need to choose one and stick with one, right? But I
Right.
wouldn't know that. The editor would know that. She would know how to fix those things. And that's, I think that's where that individual would be very important if you're writing a book. Know what is the style of writing without losing your voice. Because I still want people to hear my voice in their head when they're reading it, and not some
Yep.
British William, whoever. You want to hear my voice, right? And just getting the flow correct, I think that is just key.
What's one lesson from the book that people often overlook?
From my book?
Yes.
That is a good question, because the book itself is the training, and I think one thing that people overlook is the power of narrowing down how you prospect. Now, here's what I mean, right? You're gonna sell something, and you're gonna make 100 phone calls, but out of the 100 phone calls, you may sell 10. Wouldn't it been have more ideal that you did like some research, and from that research you realize, okay, 50 of these people here definitely not going to buy, put them on a list for later, and now I have 50 people I can call, so I cut my calls by half, but these are more quality leads because I did my research. And from that research I started to dig deeper, and I realized, okay, there's 20 people here that I don't need to call right away, so let me leave it here at 30. So now I cut my 100 calls down to 30 calls, which could even be cut down even further. But you're narrowing it down to who your ideal client profile is. And if you have that ideal client profile and you know you're going to follow it, there's a higher chance that you're going to sell. So imagine now you still sell the 10, but you only had to make 30 calls or 20 calls. Then your conversion rate is either 33% or 50% rather than 10%. So people overlook the power of being able to research and prospect effectively, and they still try to put a blanket over everything and make a ton of calls and reach out to everybody and email blasts, when more than half of that is just going into somebody's spam, or somebody's just not going to buy from you. Narrow it down, and you'll get much better results with less effort.
How do your online courses differ from traditional sales training?
Well, presently I have my online course removed from my website because I need to update it. So that's where it differs, because your online course, whereas I could update my content real time, I could be in the middle of a session, somebody ask a question, and then I could pivot the activity to something else. You can't do that in the online course, because the online course was pre-recorded and automated, and somebody is using something that might be outdated. So that's the reason why I pulled my training, my online course down, and I'm actually revamping the whole process. Yes, some of the principles will remain the same, but there's a lot of things that changed in the last 5 years. So now to redo it and put it back up there, it's about being able to keep up with the time. So with any training that you're doing online, check and see how long ago that training was recorded and up for before you decide to go forward with it. That's why I want to keep my online one updated as just as effectively as my in-person sessions.
What's next in pipeline? Any new books or programs coming soon?
A new book, yes.
Okay.
But the timing for that is not right now, because of the fact that I'm working on the new company with a team. So I'm also trying to focus some energies and times there, while I still do my training and development throughout Caribbean and the US and stuff. But a final book, I think, for me is in the thought process right now. I have an idea of what I'm gonna write, but I don't have all the dots yet in knowing exactly what I'm gonna put into it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But it's gonna be motivational for sure. It's not just gonna it's not gonna be sales. It will be motivational. So
Okay.
we'll see how that one goes.
Well, I'm looking forward to that now because well, we'll be in touch, but I definitely have to make sure that when that comes out, that I definitely get a copy of that because
For sure.
I'm sure that that's going to be a great read.
I hope so. But I'll send it to you for sure.
How do you balance being a creator, coach, and entrepreneur?
Well, here's a great thing. With technology, you can create content and schedule out that content. So when you schedule out a content, like I can do a post right now and schedule it to go out next week Friday without
Mhm.
having to create that during the week next week. So when I schedule out that content, it buys me time to do other things. Go to do the training sessions that I have booked, go to the speaking events that I have to talk at, and also being able to take calls from the team when we're doing business, do my online banking and stuff like that. It allows me to focus on other things. So you need to be able to know how to separate your time to focus on things, because I'm one of those persons, I can't multitask for the life of me. You tell me cook two pots of food at the same time, one of them is not going to have something that's it's going to have something that's missing, like salt or something, because I'm going to forget. But I'll do it one at a time and you'll get the best dishes. So when I time box my task and I said, okay, today I'm going to create content between 9 a.m. and 12 a.m. and I'm going to schedule that out for the next week, that's done. I don't have to think about that for a following week. And then I get to focus on other things. I know Monday I'm going to go to the bank, do all my banking stuff. Right. Set it, just time box everything. And
Oh, okay.
that's how you could create it.
So how well, now that's interesting because I mean, like I know the last time we talked about your CRM system, but I mean, like, how are you doing your scheduling? Are you doing it via that system, or are you doing it with something else that like pops up on the phone, the email? How do you do that?
Well, here's what. I don't do much email blasts at all. If I do
Okay.
something, it's once in 2 months, once a month, or something like that. Because I don't want to be filling up these people inboxes with all kind of spam. I don't want them to think of me as spam. If I send something, I'm going to send you a tip. Hey, here's a tip. Share this with your sales team. And of
Okay.
course, they're going to share it with their sales team because it's a sales tip, right?
Right.
So I do that. But when it comes to a platform, my main platform is the platform you even found me on. It was on LinkedIn, right?
Mhm.
And LinkedIn, you can schedule your post. You can
Yes.
create your post and schedule it to go out. In fact, all the posts I did for this event tonight here, this call, I scheduled that out the week before. Okay.
Mhm.
So I didn't have to come back and focus, oh, I forgot to do this post at this time and so on. So utilizing the platforms to the best of the ability is the
Mhm.
best way to do it. Unless if you need to use other platforms like Instagram and Facebook and these things like that, there are tools, tools that you could use where you could link your socials to it, like Hootsuite, and you schedule the post from there, and it automatically shoots it out at whatever date and time on the other platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. You can do that as well. I used to use it, but now I really only focus all my attention on LinkedIn, because that is the platform to be in for business, for recruiting, for jobs, for learning things. Yeah,
You're absolutely right. That's the network to have.
it is. It is.
Let's move over to cultural community and legacy. What does legacy mean to you as a Black Caribbean entrepreneur?
Hmm. I think it's about, well, for me, as you asked, it's about my name. It's not a popular name, but I think there's something that is instilled in me, I would say, from my dad, that I'd want to leave a mark that is memorable, that people would say that I did something for them, that they appreciate me. I think in that sense, that's what it means for me, for legacy, that I was able to help somebody out there, and my name could go in some form or fashion of history in whatever context it may be, right? But it would be marked, and 50, 100 years from now, you can still Google and find me.
Mhm.
Even if
Well,
Google is available, then who knows?
I will tell you this, and that this is the honest to God truth. When we first connected, and we were connected on LinkedIn, I will tell you the one thing that caught me instantaneously is your last name.
Oh, really?
I promise you. I'm like, wait a minute, did I read that right? I looked at your name like about a whole minute, and I'm like, that cannot be his name.
So, you know what? You're not the first person to think that.
And so it's like when you first came on the show, and I'm thinking about the name and I'm listening to the person, then I'm like, now, just believe it or not, now this is just my perception, is that in itself creates its own legacy. That stands on its own.
That is
It
good.
honestly does. And so just to be able to be more than just a success in the industry that you're in, it leans a lot in credit, for what people are used to seeing and listening to in sales. You see, that right there has already created the legacy. So
That's
it's
brilliant.
like everything else that you're doing is just adding to and it's building up.
That
That's
that
just how I see it.
you know something. I'll give you a piece of my family history here. First of all, even right here in Trinidad, it's not a popular name.
Really.
If someone else has my last name, I am 100% related to them.
Mhm,
Right? Same spelling. You're Havelock.
mhm.
We're related. That it's a guaranteed thing because there's not much of us down here.
Right.
But I would have to say thanks to my grandfather for that. Now,
Mhm.
him and my dad did not have a good relationship. My dad would probably be rolling in his grave right now for hearing me say this, but my grandfather actually changed his original surname to Havelock because
Oh,
his father's first name was actually Havelock.
oh, wow.
Yeah, and they did not have a good relationship. So that little spat that they were having all those years was probably
Mhm,
got so bad that my grandfather had to change his original last name to
mhm,
Havelock. Take
mhm.
his dad's, so my great grandfather's name is Havelock Jute,
Oh,
and his
is that
son
with the J or with the G?
J
Oh,
Jute,
wow.
right? So that's my great grandfather's name is Havelock Jute, and his son Arthur Havelock was formerly Arthur Jute, but because they had a bad relationship, he changed it to Arthur Havelock.
Dang.
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
yeah,
see, you could do that back in the day. You can't do that now without paying for it.
yeah. Oh yeah, you definitely got to pay for it. It's gonna cost a lot of money, and it's a lot of things that have to change. But then Arthur Havelock got married to Sarah David, and Sarah David, who Sarah Havelock, they had 14 children, and my dad was the last out of 14 children, and he was born in 1934.
Oh,
So
wow.
my grandmother, I still have her ID card with me. Her birth date is January 1st, 1888.
Oh, man.
So imagine that my grandmother was born in 1888. My father was born in 1934. I was born in 86. There's a lot of space in between those generations there. So if it's anything I know for sure, is that my blood is healthy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. But yeah, your name is, I mean, what you're doing is already a legacy. So the only thing you're doing is just adding to it and just building it.
maybe. But you know what? I'm not done. I don't have any plans to ever retire. I think retirement sounds boring, and I think I want to work until I can't work no more.
I hear you. Well, welcome aboard.
Very good.
How do you use your platform to uplift others in your community?
Oh man, just create content that helps people, that makes them want to say, okay, I want to do that. I want to learn from this. I want to be inspired by it. That's how I use my platforms to give out good content, right? I'm human, you know. I am human. I like to do all kind of crazy things. And my close friends, they know me. They know I like to do crazy things and stuff. But when it comes to sharing a message out there, I'm gonna give you a sales tip. I'm gonna give you a tip that could probably help you in your business or help you when you're speaking to others. I'm gonna give you that over anything else. So using the platform to effect positivity and some kind of positive change in people is the whole reason I'm doing this. Because at the end of the day, you help others, but also you help your brand. You build your brand, you build a legacy, in fact. And that legacy is the reason why I have these clients coming to me and say, Adrian, we need you to do some training for us. We need you to help the team. We need you to help the company. So it pays off in that regard for me. But it's about what I'm putting out there. And for anybody who's getting into sales or business, you put content out there that is positive to your brand. Positive could mean anything. It could be funny. It could be relatable. But it's positive to your brand. You're going to build a brand out there that people will want to work with.
And what's your take on culturally aligned business models and why do they matter?
Culturally aligned business models is succession planning for where you're going to have that business. So for example, I will use this. Think of any McDonald's or any KFC or any of those international food franchises, and you walk into any of those franchises in various different countries across the world, there are always going to be different menu, a
Yep.
different menu, a different main item. Why? Because what would work in one culture, one country, one island is not going to sell in a next island, a next country, a next continent. You have to adapt to the people the way those companies adapted to their palates, and they create menus that you would only get that you'd go Korea and you'd get something that you won't get in the Caribbean. Why? Because it's made for their palate. So it's very important for companies to be culturally aligned.
How do you stay grounded while building global influence?
For me, it's about understanding where I started and remembering that that's where I started, because I could relate to those people at that level because I was there. I went through everything you went through. And because I could relate to that, relate to them, it helps me transform the way they think and the way they do things, because then they start to relate to me and they could see, okay, if Adrian can get to this point without even getting a degree, then maybe I could do it too. It's just a matter of perspective on how you see things and how you approach things and how you try things. And all I'm doing is just showing you how I did it. What are you going to do? You're going to follow fashion or you're going to stick in your own ways? But I stay grounded because I remember that's where I started.
So, what's one thing you wish more people understood about Caribbean excellence?
By more people, you mean the international world? Yeah.
Yes.
Could you repeat the question? Let me make sure I explain it right.
What's one thing you wish more people understood about Caribbean excellence?
Is that a lot of things in the world were created by Caribbean people or people with Caribbean heritages. A lot of the greatest inventions, a lot of the greatest monuments and movies all have some kind of individual with Caribbean heritage. Throughout the Caribbean, you have highly talented, highly educated, highly motivated people that have a big impact on the world from past times to today. And what the rest of the world needs to understand is that some of the greatest people in the world, if you look at their heritage, it's a Caribbean background, because the Caribbean is a melting pot of ideas, of, of, of heritages from Europe, from India, from South America, from Asia, all coming to create together to create people who have an understanding and appreciation for everything that it have out there. So if more people could understand that great things come from Caribbean people, yeah, I think Caribbean people will make even more. In Carnival we have mass. We'll make a lot of mass.
So let's go to challenges and resilience. What's the toughest moment you faced in your career, and how did you bounce back?
Hmm. The toughest moment I faced in my career was, I would say, when I now started off, and there was a time or period in which I wasn't getting any sales. In fact, because I wasn't getting any sales, it started to affect me mentally and emotionally, because I'm thinking I'm doing something wrong, or I'm not doing enough, or I'm not cut out to do this. I started questioning what I was doing. And anybody in sales could relate to that. They could relate to that because there are periods where you'd experience slow months. You'd not hit your quota. You not even make any money. So you're basically living off of fumes, right? Without fuel, but you're trying to survive. And the only thing that I could have focused on, because as I said, I could only focus on one thing at a time, was the finish line. So I kept looking at the finish line, and I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I kept my eyes on it, just watching, just keeping my eyes on it, and I didn't take my eyes off of it. And somehow I discovered I was getting closer to it, and I didn't know how. So building resilience and making it through those times is trying to understand that you can't take your eyes off the prize. You have to keep it focused on that goal, on that end goal, on that finish line. And some form of fashion, the universe works in its mysterious ways. You will actually be going forward. If you're not walking, you're creeping. If you're not creeping, you're crawling on the ground and dragging yourself, but somehow you're moving forward. And I stuck with it. I stuck with what I was doing, and I kept pushing, kept trying to get new clients. And then eventually somebody bit, and I was like, whoa, I got a sale. And it felt like I got my first sale all over again. And that first sale excitement, when you get it all over again, it feels like relief, it feels empowering, and it gives you the confidence to keep going.
How do you handle criticism or doubt from others?
Well, you have to not take things personally. If you were to take things personally, you would never reach the end line. You'd never reach the finish line. If you're walking on the street and you're passing by people's houses and you're gonna stop and bark at every dog that barks at you, you're gonna take much longer to get to where you're going than if you just let them bark by their gates and you continue walking and going forward. So criticism is only good if it's constructive. And that is where you take it as feedback to learn how to do better. But if you're going to look at every piece of criticism and you're going to take it personally and you're going to get sad and upset and depressed and distressed by it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get ahead in life, because you're more concerned about what other people have to say rather than what you have to say.
What role has faith or spirituality played in your journey?
I mean, it has played a big role, because that book, The Power of Positive Thinking, taught me. I grew up all my life as a Christian, right? Going to the Presbyterian church and stuff like that. I mean, these days, my perspective on faith has evolved a bit more into spirituality and understanding, like, what is God and these things. But I could definitely say, when I read that first book, The Power of Positive Thinking, it was the first time it taught me how to pray, and it's like I didn't know that that's how you do a prayer. I always thought that you bow your head, close your eyes, and you just ask for something. And all my life as a kid growing up, and you're going to Sunday school and you're going to church, it was always that kind of action that wasn't really meaningful. It didn't mean something. It didn't feel like something. And reading the book taught me techniques that were like, okay, let me try this. Really and truly, it was just teaching me how to manifest, but seeing the results of the manifestations was like the miracles happening. So spirituality and faith does have a role to play, but is what is your version of spirituality and faith to you? Because my version may not be what would work for you, and your version may not be what will work for me, right? But we all have a version of it, no matter what we follow, what we're Christian, you're Hindu, you're Muslim, you're atheist. You don't have to believe in a God. It doesn't matter. You believe in universe, you believe in science. What is it for you that makes you push for more? That is your faith. That is your spirituality, however you want to call it. Just find something that works for you, and it will get you through it.
So, how do you stay motivated when things get hard?
I double down on my activities. I double down on my actions. I think action spurs results. And if things are down, if things are slow, somehow I focus my energies on doing it better, doing it more, because it helps me take my attention off the bad and onto something constructive. And when your mind is on something constructive, it means it's on something that's positive. And if it's on something that's positive, it's going to bring more positive things to you at the end of the day. So, not staying in bed and trying to worry about it, it's a big difference than if you were to stay in bed and worry about it.
Now, this one I'm sure that you've got the world's greatest answer for. What's your personal mantra or affirmation?
My personal mantra or affirmation. That one really is a good question because it has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
And in life, you go through different phases. And because you go through different phases of growth,
Mm-hmm.
there would be different elements of the mantra that would stand out to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough.
Wow, that's a well-constructed tat. How long did that take?
About an hour.
Wow. That's well-constructed, though.
Thank you. But that's the mantra right there.
Okay.
Failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough.
Let's go to vision and future. Where do you see your brand in 5 years?
It would have definitely evolved. In 5 years from now, I will be 44 years of age, and I'm already international. I'm already working with corporates. I don't see myself stopping soon, but I do see myself working outside of the Caribbean a bit more. And in 5 years' time, I would definitely want to hit a couple goals. One of them is speaking on a very large stage with a very large audience outside of the Caribbean.
Was one dream collaboration you'd love to pursue?
One dream collaboration I would love to pursue is speaking on stage alongside my very own mentor. I went to the UK and met Andy Harrington. I think that would be a dream collaboration. And if he sees this video, he's definitely going to challenge me to get to that point.
Why Andy Harrington?
Because what I learned from him really impacted the results that I saw when I put it into play. And he has spoken on stages alongside people like Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins and Les Brown and Brendan Burchard. Like, he is at that level speaking on stages with those people. And I think that motivates me to become or achieve the level that he has achieved.
How do you define success today, and has that changed over time?
Success today is about being able to understand personal branding. Personal branding in the sense of you can be an expert at anything as long as you create content and you put yourself out there, and people will start seeing you as the expert in that field. And that has changed compared to 5 years ago, right? 10 years ago, where personal branding wasn't the main thing. You were representing a company, the company would probably put out an ad, you'd probably be in the ad, that kind of thing. But now, to sell anything, if you're working for a company or if you have your own business or you're a consultant, you have to create content and put yourself out there. You have to create a personal brand. So that's why personal branding is very important now.
What's one bold goal you're working on right now?
One bold goal that I'm working on right now is actually that air conditioning company that I heavily invested in and started off with my colleagues. That bold vision is about being able to take that company to a level where we could be recognized as one of the more recognized companies in the island. But as we only now started and it's just a small team, we have a long way to go. So it's bold, competition is high, but it's what are we going to do to cut through the weeds and try to stand out from the rest? I think that is something I'm still figuring out. But I'm gonna work at it. So yeah.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't spend money on women.
Stop it. Stop the madness.
My 20s, I could, you know how much money I could have had in the bank right now?
Oh boy. That would be hard.
It would be.
We're gonna let's do a rapid fire.
Sure.
And we're gonna we're gonna go into closing.
Sure.
Your favorite Caribbean dish?
Favorite Caribbean dish? Oh, that's a hard one. You have plenty good food over here. But as a Trinidadian, I'd have to stand to my roots and I would have to say a roti and doubles.
Who?
A roti and doubles.
What is that?
You're in Atlanta. There are lots of Caribbean joints out there. You gotta go in and ask for a roti or a doubles.
Spell that.
ROTI. Roti, if you want to say it that way.
Okay.
Right? Now that is like an Indian flatbread, but it could also be cooked in a soft way, and you put things like curried chicken or curried beef or stewed beef, or you put some kind of meat in there, and maybe with some potatoes and stuff that's also curried, and you put that together, and it forms this nice magical wrap, kind of like a fat burrito, right?
Okay.
And you could eat it as one, or you could deconstruct it and eat it with your hands. That is really fantastic. And doubles is a Trinidadian dish, right? That is a fried flatbread with curried chickpeas as well. It's a vegan dish, but it's a staple here in Trinidad and Tobago, in that you can get it for breakfast, you can get it for dinner, you can get it for lunch, you could get it for late night after you're partying and you're drunk. It's a any day, anytime, anywhere kind of dish that you eat with your hands. And if you have one of that, you're not going to stop. You're going to have like maybe 5 or 10 after you eat the first one. So you're going to absolutely enjoy that, because we have people outside of the Caribbean that ask for that because it's known as a Trinidadian dish.
One book everyone should read.
One book. Ooh. Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. That teaches you how to have conversations.
Most underrated skill in business.
Leadership. If you're great at leading, you can do great things.
Who inspires you right now?
Presently, I'm listening to more Wayne Dyer.
What's one message you want our audience to remember after this interview?
If you have a goal, you don't have to look at all the ways it takes you to get to that goal. Just look at the first step and work on the first step. That's it. Just work on the first step. And when you achieve that first step, then you look at the second step and then achieve that second step. Don't look at the whole way. Just look at what's in front of you and work to it and make it happen. And then repeat that process until you reach the final step.
Okay, so in closing, I don't know. I guess maybe that was probably your closing remark, but I'll just say in closing, is there any other words of wisdom that you like to offer our audience, as well as how to connect with you on social media, your website, or anything you'd like for them to know? What you've got coming out or what you've got going on right now?
All right. So for sure, what I can tell you is that you can find me on all the social platforms, but my main platform is LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, come on. If you're not on LinkedIn, join LinkedIn and add me on LinkedIn. But I'm also on the other platforms. You get me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and I'm sharing all my content there as well. Okay. The one thing that I want to leave with you, and I want to make sure that it sticks, is to always remember that no matter what you're doing, if you have your own business or you're serving customers, do it with a good heart and do it with good intentions. Because if you do something with a good heart, good intentions, a good mind, and not a bad mind, right? You would be amazed to see the type of results that you're going to get. And if it doesn't pay off now, it's going to pay off later in a big way. Because some interaction that you would have with somebody now may impact them now, but later down the road, when you need that type of impact, it's going to come to you because you probably help somebody feel that feeling. So make sure you do it with good intentions.
Alrighty. I want to thank you for once again coming here to this platform and providing not just a very good interview, but again, just providing really, really good information that that people in our communities really not only need to hear, but they need to see, the success of someone that looks like them that's actually in that arena. I understand, as we had that question about a misconception about sales and, and just dealing with people in general, a lot of people really have that misconception where sometimes that one experience is one that just everlasting. But I'm going to say to the audience, every time Adrian has been here, Adrian has made me just I love sales. I'm just being honest. I love sales. And I can honestly say I know what my experiences have been in the past that really have been not so tasteful. But you really make sales, worth doing, worth really exploring, because a lot of people have not had that experience or met that side of sales. And that in itself is very influential because that's hard work, and depending upon what side you're on, if you're on the side that's doing the job, then I think what you're talking about really makes doing that job worth doing, and it makes it really like a happy thing to do. If you're on this side where you're receiving that service and you got this person that's just doing this at you, that's not a good experience.
No,
but
it's not.
your experience is not like that at all. And
No.
so that is definitely worth having. And I suggest that not only do people listen to what you have to say, but I really suggest that they learn, these principles and these things that you're teaching, because basically you can actually teach that master class all over the world. It's just that it's just that great. So I want you all that's listening tonight to understand that, when it comes to not only picking a career field, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when you listen to what Adrian had to say tonight, it's basically, well, not basically, it's basically, it is the approach that you want to take when you're dealing with people, when people either want to spend that money or you want to serve people in the way in which you want them to be not just respected, but to respect you for the work that you're doing. Because think about when he started this at the age of 18, 19, 20 years old, and look to where he is right now. That kind of success in that industry don't just happen like that. So apparently there are some things that, one, you can learn, one, you can ask folk to mentor you, and three, you can say, hey, this is where I want to be and this is what I want to do because I want to make an impact. Adrian is making an impact, and he's actually making that difference over there, not just in the Caribbean, but we're here in the States. And so being here in the States, and we know what that experience is like, you can change that whole game.
You could. It's amazing the kind of progress you can possibly make when you put yourself out there. And I was in Atlanta just last year, and I have to come back again soon again. So maybe I'll be seeing you as well. So we'll be working closely a bit more too. So anything that you want to do in this life, once you put your mind to it and you just take the first step, you're going to see results. Just get to it. Don't think about what anybody else is going to say. Unless if they've done it before, they have no right to tell you how to do it.
Exactly. So I thank you all for joining us for this Friday evening special, which has been truly, truly a great experience. For those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, if you have not yet subscribed or got all the notifications, please lend us that support and subscribe to the channel. Get all of the notifications. You can get all the shows when they happen, when they're going live, or you also have the opportunity to go back and check out all the other content for all the other shows that's got all the learned experiences for whatever you're looking for. And we broadcast live on 8 different channels. So you got 8 ways to watch the show and 8 ways to be a part of this community, because we've created that community as well, because we are allowing these networking experiences to take off, and we want people to be able to not just connect, but to grow and expand, especially if you're an entrepreneur. I want to thank you again, Adrian, for being here. And again, hey, I'm definitely going to be shooting you an email, so make sure you check your email.
I will.
And you all have a great Friday evening. And by the way, we are going to do another special this Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You all enjoy your weekend, and please come back and see us on American Black and White, where we will continue to color conversations on the canvas